Hi yogis, I'm Pippa. I work with Jeff Bailey, the founder of Avita Yoga, as his global support, you could say. I'm here to introduce today's Avita Yoga community chat, recorded live and available now to listen to anytime. The Avita Yoga community chat is a free, informal and welcoming Q&A with Jeff, where students and teachers alike can bring their questions and learn from each other to deepen their understanding of the practice and their own bodies. In today's chat, we learn to literally listen to our bodies. There's a question about joints popping. It's not necessarily something to fear, but it's good to know the difference between that and cracking or crunching. Also, Avita teachers, this one's for you. Jeff has advice on topics such as the physical setup of your studio and the importance of a class succession while still tailoring to your students' needs. Now on to the chat. Enjoy.
All right. Well, I know you have a question, Alexa, and Lisa, nice to have you joining us here. And Kendall.
Hi.
How are you doing? Hi, Kendall.
Very well. I have to leave at 1:30, so I have something to share, but I can wait if Alexa wants.
No, No.
Share.
Okay. So I've been practicing regularly for I don't know how long now, but I wanted to, I guess, kind of a report that I want your comment on. I have osteoarthritis in my hip, as you may remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I am noticing that the pain in my hip is considerably less, which is really exciting to me. And I do better if I can do 3 or 4 classes a week instead of just 1 or 2. But I haven't always been able to manage that because of other things going on. So that's part of it. But what I'm noticing now is that I've got the joint is popping. So, you know how your joints crack your fingers? Some people do that.
Yeah.
So it happens when I'm shifting position in my office chair. And it also happens sometimes when I'm walking up the stairs. It doesn't hurt. And it's not happening while I'm walking, but it's interesting to me that there's that definite change that I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that too, and I've had that question asked before. I've noticed it in my body in various places.
Oh, cool.
And the popping is always it's a universal mystery. It may never be solved. We may make it to Mars, but we'll never know why joints pop. But there's lots of different theories. But theories aside of what a pop is, what I've experienced and what I strongly believe is when it comes on as a surprise, so like you've never had it before and now you're doing a fair amount of yoga, your pain is diminishing, you're feeling better, and then the pop starts to come. To me, it's a sign of increased mobility. Something is changing in there. And generally when we start to hear that popping, in my experience, it's always for the better. So it's a good thing. And the next thing that I've experienced is with consistent practice, the pop comes and then it goes. And if you can ever be in a shape where you feel like it's about to pop, like you feel like right there, it's about to do its thing, that's where you try to stop and you try to stay right on the edge of it. And sometimes it'll click or it'll pop and like, okay, I'll catch it next time. Or sometimes you can go back and kind of grab it again. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And then whatever it is, the whole idea is just to smooth it all out. But I've seen it with places in the back and the spine, the neck, hips, so initially it's the sound of more movement. And I think it's the sound of health. And then eventually you can even smooth that away.
Yeah. Well, I had a sense that it was a good thing that it.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Telling me that things are moving and opening up more. So it's really nice to have that affirmed and hear that other people, including yourself, had that experience.
You've done a great job. You have a consistent practice and you just keep coming back to it. And we've modified your shapes a little bit. Are your shapes starting to evolve a little bit now?
Yeah, I have a lot more mobility in my lower back than I used to have. And no fear at all about doing the Yeah.
That's a big celebration.
It
I
just
can
feels
see it.
like, yeah, the more flexible I am, the better for me, and I don't have to worry that something's going to break back there.
Mhm.
Other thing is,
Yeah.
I've had some questions for you about, I don't remember what it's called, but when you're sitting on a bolster, when you have your feet together and legs spread, I do this so
This
often,
one.
I
Yeah.
didn't know the name. Yeah.
Hmm.
When we do it on a bolster lying on our backs, that's when I have problems where the bone spur will catch. And so I've talked to you about using a strap just to support my knees in that pose, and it's helped a lot.
Hmm.
But
Are
I
you on
just
your
feel
back?
like it's,
Is your head on the bolster or your feet on the bolster? Or does it matter?
that's when I never have a problem when my head is on the bolster, but yeah. So when my feet are on the bolster supported and then doing that pose,
Uh-huh. That's when you feel the bone spur catch.
it can, yeah,
Hmm.
unless I support it with this strap.
And how do you support it with the strap? You put it around your two knees?
Yeah, I've got it in a loop, and then I just
Yeah.
adjust it so that the tension is holding, and then I can
Yeah.
relax into it and not worry about
Then you
it.
can relax. Yeah, that's key. And I would mix that up with sometimes not using it and just using your thigh muscles. We've talked
Okay.
about that too, right?
Yeah.
You kind of just mix it up between those two. It's really good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good job.
Good.
That's reason to celebrate.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Alexa, did you have your question?
Yeah, well, two things. That just brought something up. Is popping the same as like crepitus? Like, when you
No.
hear crack, no, because is that more like a gas release? Like if you hear
Well,
that?
there's theories around what the crack or the pop is.
Yeah.
Like when you get a chiropractic adjustment, whatever that crack is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different theories around that. But that's a little bit, I think, of what Kendall is speaking to. But crepitus is a whole different story. Crepitus is like advanced arthritis and, starts to get into pre-generation of a joint or even degenerative, where it's just kind of crunchy and grindy. And if we can catch it soon enough, we can start to add pressure and we can start to work through even that. Crepitus we can handle.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's always, it's funny how the popping and stuff made me think of it, because like one of my like an adductor or something, you just like one of those, let's see, what would be a movement? Say you're internally rotating your leg, or there's just a spot where that, I know, say you're laying on your back and you lift your leg up. There's always like one leg that has a little pop or something. And if you turn it just a little bit, it doesn't happen. And you're always like, what is that? And then all of a sudden, like with Avita, it just goes away. And it's like, it's almost like you feel like there's like a little something's like flipping over, like, like a little catch, like a little ligament or something, almost like it's not quite lined up sort of. And, Kendall, you just made me think of it, because for years it would be like, and you just ignore it. You go like, oh, I just will always internally rotate my foot a little bit when I lift it up, and it won't happen. And you just realize, you forget, like you just reminded me that I used to do that all the time. And I didn't even, and it's gone. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. And I have to say that I have been, I have severe neck issues, and I'm not supposed to do. It was funny because I remember the doctor saying to me because I was doing a lot of painting, and he's like, the only thing you can do now is paint with your wallet. You're not allowed to paint anymore. It's bad for you. And you can't, definitely can't paint ceilings. And I was telling Joan earlier today, I just finished my third ceiling and I'm doing so much painting. And do I have pain? Not in my neck. My hands are a little numb. I'm super sore. Like my practice has been I mean, like, I hate when my practice is interrupted, but it's just, I've had to do what I had to do. But I know that like in the morning or at night, I'm just doing specific shapes that I know are going to help me, and rock on, man. I feel amazing. And, poop on the doctor who said I can never, look at a ceiling again. Look, I can see, no problem. so
Yeah.
it really is.
They know the physiology. They all learned it in school. And they
Yeah.
just didn't put a practical application on it.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah,
anyway,
so you're
my
doing the same thing.
question-
Let me just say, the tendency when you
Mhm.
feel it in an exercise, the tendency before this has always been to, oh, there it is, I avoid it. And now we very thoughtfully approach it.
Yeah, it was
and move
fear. I
through
was
it.
like, oh my God, I don't want to, you remember pain and you don't want to ever go back to it. But now it's like I have no fear. I know there are things I need to, back off a little bit, but that's just, how I'm made. My question, and I think I just figured it out. Class number 1 in the series, that's the one I did at Ridgely as a freebie on the first of the year. And that seems to have brought in a lot of people. And Joan, you took that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you were helping me out. So I'm thinking about doing that again here, just as an introduction, like just come on in. Do you think that's a good thing to do? It's not introducing them to wall work, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I could use chairs. I've got 20 chairs, but I thought, your first time, do you really want to use chairs?
No. Yeah, I always had 2 chairs around, and it's very rare I used them both. But every once in a while, you get somebody, you're like, oh, wait right here. I'll be right back with a chair. You have 30 other people doing the yoga, but then you put them in a chair. Like, okay, that's what it's for. Or if you're doing a private, you may need it. Class plan number 1 is, you can teach it as hard as you want. You could make it an orange class. You can you can teach it easy. You can teach it long. It's an hour and a half class if you want it to be. You can teach it in 60 minutes. To get 60 minutes or even a little bit less, you go through some of them pretty quick, and you might leave the repetitious ones out. Leave the repeats out. But yeah, that's a nice one.
Okay, I'm going to do that again then, because I think I can get. It's definitely a crowd that needs it. But
the key,
Maryland was so fun. Now I'm starting all over again. Dang it.
Yeah, well, you're an expert. No, it's fun. I think it's super fun to build it. But the key is to really listen to them, really pay attention, look them in the eye and wait and hear what they have to say. And that alone, when we go to the doctors now with managed care and everything, they're allotted 13 minutes. That's the last statistic that I heard. They're allotted 13 minutes. And they usually don't ask many questions. They ask a couple questions. They want to hear the complaint, and then they launch right into solutions. And if we can learn to really listen and inquire and be really genuine that way. And if you don't know the answer now, they're pretty sure you're going to find it because you're listening.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this summer, since we have more people here in the summer and it's super quiet in the winter, I'm hoping that we'll get more people in the summer and enough full-timers so that they know when they're slow in the wintertime, it's time to take care of their bodies. So we'll see what happens.
I had a question, Jeff, on the teaching, actually, since we're on that kind of topic. As you know, I just started teaching a Thursday night class at Ridgely, and the way I looked at it and the way I look at the class plans is that I started with class number 1 and I'm going in succession from 1 through, whatever. So tomorrow I'm teaching class number 6. And I know other folks are kind of jumping around a little bit, and I don't know if they're both right or if there's kind of a methodology to it. When I look at the class plans, there seems to me to be a progression in the classes themselves. And so it just made sense to me to start with 1 and work my way up as opposed to starting with 35,
Yeah. there's a lot of reasons to just teach them in succession. And one of the big ones is to get out of our I know mind. Like, I know what they need.
Good
And
point.
there's nothing ever happens by chance. And so we just let go, and we go through them, 45 classes in succession. Whoever shows up into the room, no matter who it is, that's the class you teach. And it will push you inside, because there'll be somebody that you'll want to do something totally different, but then you find a way to make it just right for them. That's the internal challenge is the best yoga for us as teachers. It's amazing, and the resources just keep coming and coming. But if you just say, oh, I feel like teaching this class today, and I'm predicting who's going to be there and what it's going to be for, and maybe they show up, maybe they don't, it's a decision that really messes with the mind. Or if you come in with 2 class plans, and I'll teach the one that seems best. I have done that on very rare occasions, but you just want to be able to come in and focus on the student and not have to think about the class plan you're going to teach, or not have to think about modifying it. And I've taught those classes when I was developing them, and I did exactly that. I taught those classes at least a half a dozen times in succession, until some people were blue in the face. Some people seemed like they could almost predict what was coming, and I just kept doing it. Yeah. And they kept coming back because they kept getting better. They kept feeling better. And so that's a whole other thing that we have to challenge in our mind is, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to, and so I'm challenging you guys all to go through them in succession 3 times.
Yeah. So that maybe mention that when we get together.
Yeah, it's a feeling you had. Okay. Yeah.
Just a feeling that I have that maybe it's not happening. But
yeah, I get it.
Yes. So what I'll share with me, why the succession makes sense is there is some repetition in the shapes, and you know exactly what you're saying is that when there's repetition in the shapes for me as a teacher, or there's some variation in the shapes for me as a teacher, I'm much more readily able to see something going on in someone's body, or to see if they need an adjustment, because my mind is familiar with the shape, and I'm like, all right, I know that that they've got to have their heels here, I need support on the shoulder, and it's happening faster because there's repetition in that succession.
Totally. Yeah, those classes are designed for you as well as the teacher. No, that's exactly it. And by the time you get to this particular situation with this brand new student, you'll know half a dozen different ways to make it just right for them.
Right.
And then you develop that skill, where ultimately, and that's the nice thing about starting out with a small group, is ultimately you develop the mental capacity, the bandwidth to in a way, you have a unique class going for each student. We want to be able to teach slow enough and be resourced enough to do that. It's really fun. Yeah.
Great. And then the other question I had was particular to just my body, and in listening to I'm sorry, I didn't see what the woman's name was that was talking about her bone spur for her hip.
Oh, that's Kendall.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Hi, Kendall. I have the same thing as Jeff. And what I've noticed in doing Badakanasana reclined, and I saw in one of your classes that you gave one of the women support with a bolster underneath their legs when they were in a reclined Badakanasana. And for me, I'm feeling when I do that, especially when my legs are in a bolster, that I am getting into that soft tissue in the right hip. And so can I support a little bit with a block, or do I just keep with Badakanasana on the floor in there? So, or can I support one hip and not the other? Should I do both? So kind of just your thoughts on that.
Okay. So when you are reclined and it's Badakanasana, feet on the bolster, and you're dropping your knees, that's when it starts to get kind of hot. It feels like it's in the soft tissue.
Mm-hmm.
But when you remove the bolster, it's okay.
It's not as bad. Yeah.
Not as bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there, but I can manage it. For me, it's difficult because I'm a little bit of a warrior as opposed to a goddess. So
Yeah.
I tend to push. I tend to push a little bit, and in my mind, I'm like, well, is it soft tissue or is it just that
Yeah.
I'm, you know,
Yeah.
there's a ton of shaking, a lot of movement. In one of the classes we just did, in one of the 30 classes, we were in that shape for a really long time. And then when I came up out of it, I was shaking so much, it was coming up through it into my pelvis. So I knew I was doing some good work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard sometimes for me to gauge, am I overdoing it, and maybe that'll come with time with the practice.
Man, I think that's spot on. I've seen, I know what you're talking about. I've had that on occasions, but I've seen students have that where their whole body, and sometimes they're not even, sometimes they're very aware of it, and some students not even aware at all. They don't even know it's happening. Yeah. Let's talk about the student who might be having that experience. In case you see that in the room, now you'll know everything is okay. And so it's a glance, it's a look, it's a thumbs up or something that just lets them know, yeah, without interrupting their process. You don't want to go and have an intellectual conversation and tell them what's happening. Just let them have it. And so given the fact that you're having that kind of reorganizational experience when you go into that shape, give it time, let it happen.
Okay.
I think it's right on. But before you said that, my question to you was, have you ever dropped into that shape and dropped into the pain of what feels like soft tissue and actually endured it for a minute and a half or so and then checked it out later?
No. Just because I've got that tear, I've been, yeah.
Yeah. And so
I mean, I can do it. I can definitely do it.
Wait. This is about your labral tear?
Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Not with that.
Okay.
So that's what.
I've got a bone spur and I've got a tear in the same hip.
And is the bone spur, is it lined up with the tear in a certain movement? Does the bone spur go right through it? Yeah. You can't push into that.
Okay.
No. I thought it was a little more vague, like and in the back side of your hip and around the hamstring.
It's right. It's right there. Yeah.
No, you forget what I said.
Okay. Support it.
Yeah, and you just have to see. So now you know where that is. Some people would say, okay, I want to keep ice skating, or I want to do whatever it is that keeps me from doing. And so I'll go get the surgery and get that little thing cleaned off, and then it stops bumping into the labrum. Pretty difficult thing for us to clean up or repair in a Vita yoga. But you know it's there, you have a practice. And as long as you can go through your day and walk and ride your bike and do the things that you like to do, then it's all working, and to generally stay off of that.
Yeah, it's been, and the Vita has helped it very much because it's working on everything else within the joint. So, I feel like I have more freedom in the joint. It's not inhibited me in any way. I get a little twinge if I hit it at times, but it's been very helpful. The practice has.
But the part I don't understand is if you're in Badakanasana and your knees are wide, then my understanding is that bone spur is a mile away from the labral tear.
I know. I don't know why I feel it. So maybe it's referred
but you still
pain.
feel it in the groin.
Yeah.
Could just be referred.
And surely when you bring the knee toward the center chest or toward the opposite shoulder, then it really.
I don't even do that.
Painful.
Yeah. I just, when you cue that, I just go right knee to right shoulder every time.
Yeah. Good. And so when they're wide, the pain is still in that same place, but it's a different kind of pain. But and it causes all the reactions through your body.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would keep playing with that. Sometimes you can support, if you decide to support them like Kendall is with a strap, or you can put a block under both knees. Support your hips the same. only because if you support them differently, then sometimes if you do that enough, it turns into a little SI problem.
That's what I thought.
You know?
Okay.
And so you just want to keep them balanced. And sometimes, like I said to Kendall, sometimes no support, but you're holding your knees up and you're dabbling in there. And then super important, Joan, there's the feedback we get in the shape. There's the feedback we get after the shape. There's the feedback in the next shape as a result of the previous shape, right? The one that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there's how you feel an hour at the end of the class. Then there's how you feel at the end of the day and the next day. So you start to track, what did I do there? And how does it feel later and the next day? And that's kind of what I was getting at before. We know, or at least we're pretty sure we're not driving the problem deeper by moving that. So maybe there's something else going on, even if it's referred, then or I would say especially if it's referred,
right?
Then, but we don't always know if it's referred or not.
Yeah. All right. I'll approach it the way I've been approaching it, and I keep that leg held up a little bit. Sometimes after time's passed, if we're in it for 3 minutes, I can soften out of it, release a little bit more. I'll just baby it a little bit, but I'll keep with it, especially with that nervous system reaction. So
at least you're over your post-traumatic yoga injury disorder. I did this to myself. We all have that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of that acronym. That's a good one.
PTYD.
PTYD. Yeah. Linda, did you have a question?
I just had a kind of vague question. I am 52. So since the time I was in my 30s, people have been warning me that I need to build muscle mass as a woman as I age. So I'm just curious, what are we doing with muscles?
Well, I don't think we're going to build muscle mass with this. That's probably a special diet and a special plan. But we do build tonicity, and we increase circulation. If you look up the number one cause of pain, last time I looked it up, it's lack of circulation. And so because we use the musculature so fully, and we go into we approach the fullest potential of the joint, which is a mobility issue in the joint, and it's generally a flexibility everywhere else. So we go for the mobility, and in doing so, we tend to use our muscles a lot, but it's not repetitive, as you know, and it's oftentimes isometric and static, which are the things that build bone too. Most women, 55, 60 plus, their big concern is bone density and not muscle mass. And I think we do a really good job of doing both. We're not going to end up on the cover of Muscle Magazine. We're not even going to end up on the cover of Yoga Journal, but we don't care. We just feel good.
And I do think that I don't you guys feel like I used to be a big time weight trainer, and I don't do it anymore, but I still feel really strong. And in my daily activities, I mean, oh my God, I do crazy stuff. I'm still really strong. And my thought is, and I just make this stuff up, is that we're using every single muscle. So we're using all of the intrinsic muscles as well. Not, like if you're lifting, you're using your quads, your hams, whatever, but we consolidate so many muscles that I think that's naturally your body works better, and all the intrinsic muscles that sit around and don't get used are now really strong.
Strength is an interesting thing, because I've seen 27-year-old young super fit men that struggle like crazy to hold the strap.
Oh yeah.
And right next to a 70-year-old woman who's just
taking a nap
while she's doing right. So what's up with that? Yes, he could lift a piano much easier than she's going to, but that's a whole different story. So what is strength? I think of most of us feel like our strength is impeded because of a pain response or because of a joint issue. And we feel like, it suddenly doesn't feel safe to do that or lift a little bit. A good example is when we have the bolster overhead, we're lying on the back and you lift the bolster up with your hand, just an inch off the floor. For a lot of people, it triggers, it can trigger a little degenerative or arthritis or an old injury or something in there, which is what we're after. We want to target that. But it can also just be disorganization.
Mm-hmm.
And what is this thing called muscle mass and muscle, and I think we tend to get a little obsessed with muscle. So anyway, I mean, we're kind of covering a lot of different bases here, but I feel really confident that you're going to have good, strong, organized body and muscles and bones and joints,
And plus you're like, weightlifters, I crack up watching people walk around, like they can't straighten their arms. Well, suddenly when you have full fulcrum movement of every joint, like everything you do is so much easier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when it's so much easier, you feel stronger.
Yep.
Carrying your body around and lifting up, just lifting a heavy pan out of the bottom shelf onto the stove.
Mm-hmm.
Simple little things that don't come so simple as time goes by. I mean, I take the word sustainability pretty seriously because I've seen what age does, what time does to us.
Built to last.
Yeah, in theory. And at the same time, we have to let it all go. Does that help, Linda?
I was just more curious. I'm always curious about what's going on,
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a few minutes left. Lisa, do you have anything to share? Just tuning in?
Yeah, just tuning in. I mean, it's wonderful to hear everybody's comments about their experience with the practice. And as you know, it's it is so, for me, it is like super powerful right now because the left and right sides of my body are not
Mm-hmm.
talking to each other. But I find that if I can do a daily practice, which I've been better at lately, that my body does seem to be more in sync. So I think working left and right side, it doesn't matter whether you're getting strong or endurance or whatever. It's just, you just feel better because your body's working in sync with itself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then we learn to evaluate less. We don't get so concerned about some sort of test or how am I doing, how am I ranking with other people. It's just, that's all part of the ego thought system. And we start to slip away from that. We just trust our feelings. That's our best barometer.
Yeah.
Listen to them. Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining in.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
It was good
I
to
hope
meet
you have
you.
fun at the show tonight. That'll be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Should be good. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
You should dress
And
up.
we'll see you in a month.
Maybe. Yeah, I'll dress up. All right. Yeah, I'll see you in a month in Maryland.
Okay.
All right.
Have some fun.
See ya.
All right.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Namaste.
Namaste.
Hello again. If you enjoyed today's chat, please share it with friends and family and subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you have a question for Jeff and the Avita community, or know someone who does, why not join a live chat? They are on the first Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You'll find the link in the episode notes. Thanks for listening.